It's a frustration many of us gardeners know all too well. You build a beautiful raised bed, a sturdy compost bin, or a handsome new fence, all from wood. It looks splendid, full of promise for the seasons ahead. Yet, in what feels like the blink of an eye, the rot sets in. The corners start to feel soft and spongy. The base crumbles away, and before you know it, the whole structure is failing. We often blame the wood itself, or perhaps the relentless British rain. We might even spend a pretty penny on modern treatments, paints and liners, hoping to seal the wood away from the elements and keep it strong for years to come. But more often than not, these efforts seem to fall short. The decay still finds a way in, sometimes even faster than we expect. It can feel like a losing battle, a constant cycle of building, watching things decay, and then rebuilding. It's costly, it's time-consuming, and it's disheartening. We are led to believe that wood in the garden is destined to have a short and unhappy life. Yet, if you look at ancient structures, timber frames that have stood for centuries, you have to wonder what they knew that we seem to have forgotten. They didn't have our fancy chemicals or plastic membranes. So what was their secret? The problem isn't necessarily the wood or the rain. The issue often lies in how we are using the wood in our gardens today. We tend to place it in direct, constant contact with the damp soil. We box it in, wrap it up, and inadvertently create the perfect conditions for decay to thrive. We think we are protecting it, but in reality, we are suffocating it. Wood needs to breathe, just like any other natural material. When we cut it off from the air and trap moisture against its surface, we are rolling out the welcome mat for the fungi and bacteria that cause it to break down. This modern approach goes against the very nature of wood. Think of a fallen branch in a forest. The part touching the damp, leafy ground will rot away, while the part exposed to the air can remain solid for years. Our garden structures are no different. When we bury the feet of a trellis directly in the soil, or build a raised bed with its boards pressed hard against wet earth, we are creating a permanent state of dampness. This constant moisture is the real enemy, not the occasional downpour. It is this trapped wetness that invites the microscopic organisms to begin their feast, turning our lovely wooden projects back into soil far too quickly. Many people believe that water is the direct cause of wood rot. It's an easy assumption to make. After all, wood gets wet, and then it rots. But the truth is a little more nuanced than that. Water alone will not cause healthy wood to decay. You can submerge a piece of timber in a bucket of clean water for a very long time, and it will remain perfectly sound. Think of the ancient wooden posts found preserved for centuries in peat bogs, or the timber foundations of old Venice, submerged for a millennium. In these cases, the wood is completely saturated, but the lack of oxygen prevents the fungi responsible for rot from surviving. So, if it's not just water, what is the secret recipe for decay? Rot is a biological process. It requires 3 key ingredients to get started: moisture, a food source, the wood itself, and oxygen. The fungi that break down wood are living organisms, and like most life on Earth, they need air to breathe. The problem in our gardens is not that the wood gets wet, but that it stays damp in an environment where there is also plenty of air. This combination of persistent moisture and good airflow right at the surface of the wood creates the ideal breeding ground for these destructive fungi to flourish. This is precisely the environment we create when we place wood directly onto or into the soil. The soil acts like a sponge, holding moisture against the timber long after the rain has stopped. The surface of the soil is also rich in oxygen, providing the final piece of the puzzle. The wood is not fully submerged, where there is no oxygen, nor is it fully exposed to the air, where it can dry out quickly. Instead, it is trapped in that perfect, deadly zone of being constantly damp, but with enough air for the fungi to do their destructive work. This is why you see rot starting at the ground level and working its way up. understanding this changes everything. It means our goal should not be to try and create an impenetrable waterproof barrier, which is almost impossible to maintain in a garden setting. These barriers often fail, trapping small amounts of moisture inside and making the problem even worse. Instead, our focus should shift to preventing the conditions that allow rot to begin in the first place. The secret is not to fight the water, but to manage it. We need to find a way to allow our garden wood to get wet, which is inevitable, but then allow it to dry out quickly and thoroughly. For centuries, builders and gardeners understood this principle perfectly. They knew that the key to making wood last was to keep it from having prolonged contact with the damp earth. If you look at very old timber-framed buildings or ancient garden fences, you will rarely see the wood sitting directly on the ground. Instead, you will find a simple yet ingenious solution. The wooden posts or beams are rested upon a foundation of stone. This could be a large, flat stone called a staddle stone, a plinth made of bricks, or even just a humble pile of packed gravel. It's a technique born from observation and common sense. This simple act of raising the wood, even by just a few inches, makes all the difference. The stone or gravel creates a crucial barrier. It breaks the continuous capillary action that draws moisture up from the soil and into the wood. Water can't soak up through a solid stone or a well-draining layer of gravel in the same way it can through soil and wood fibres. When it rains, the wood will still get wet, of course. But as soon as the rain stops, the air can circulate freely, all around the base of the timber. This constant airflow is like a gentle, persistent breeze that dries the wood out completely. This method prevents the wood from ever being stuck in that danger zone of being perpetually damp. The moisture comes, and then it goes. The fungi that cause rot never get the foothold they need because their ideal living conditions, that state of constant dampness, are never established. It is an elegant solution that works in harmony with nature rather than fighting against it. It accepts that rain will fall and wood will get wet, but it uses the power of air and gravity to ensure the wood does not stay wet. It is a testament to how our ancestors used simple, readily available materials to solve complex problems. Moreover, this mineral layer of stone or gravel provides an inhospitable environment for the fungi themselves. These organisms thrive in organic, damp material like soil and wood. They find it much harder to colonize and travel across a dry, inorganic surface like a bed of sharp gravel or a solid stone block. So, not only does the stone foundation help the wood dry faster, but it also creates a sort of no man's land that the agents of decay are reluctant to cross. This two-pronged defense is incredibly effective, and it's a technique that is just as relevant and easy to apply in our gardens today as it was hundreds of years ago. While lifting wood off the ground is a crucial step, the type of wood you choose also plays a significant role in its longevity. Our ancestors knew this well and would always select their timber with care, depending on the job it needed to do. Some woods are naturally more resistant to rot than others because they contain high concentrations of protective oils, tannins, and other chemicals. These compounds make the wood less palatable to the fungi and insects that cause decay. When you combine the right wood with the right technique, you create a structure that can truly stand the test of time. At the top of the list for rot resistance are woods like oak, sweet chestnut, and cedar. Oak, particularly heartwood, is dense and rich in tannins, which is why it has been used for centuries in everything from shipbuilding to timber-framed houses. Sweet chestnut has similar properties and was traditionally used for fencing because it lasts for decades, even in contact with the ground. Cedar contains natural aromatic oils that act as a preservative, repelling both insects and fungi. While these timbers can be more expensive, their incredible lifespan often makes them a more economical choice in the long run, saving you from repeated replacements. It's also important to consider the health of the soil around your wood. We often think of soil as a hostile environment for timber, full of wood-eating organisms. However, a healthy, living soil can actually be a protective partner. A soil that is teeming with a diverse community of beneficial microbes, fungi, and bacteria is in a state of balance. In this environment, the aggressive, wood-rotting fungi are kept in check by their competitors and predators. A sterile, lifeless soil, on the other hand, is a vacuum that can be easily colonized by the most aggressive decay-causing organisms, which will then attack any wood they can find. Therefore, nurturing your soil with plenty of organic matter, like good homemade compost, is not just good for your plants, it's good for your wooden structures too. A well-aerated, free-draining soil with a rich and varied microbial life is less likely to become a stagnant, waterlogged breeding ground for rot. It creates a balanced ecosystem where no single organism can dominate. This is another example of working with nature. By fostering a healthy soil food web, you are essentially recruiting a microscopic army to help protect your garden wood from its enemies, creating a more resilient and sustainable garden from the ground up. So, how can we, as modern gardeners, apply these time-honored principles to make our own garden wood last longer? The good news is that it is surprisingly simple. You don't need any special skills or expensive equipment, just a little bit of planning and a different way of thinking. The first and most important step is to always create a barrier between your wood and the soil. For a new raised bed, this can be as easy as laying a foundation of bricks, flat stones, or even a few inches of coarse gravel in a trench where the base of the bed will sit. Build the wooden frame directly on top of this mineral layer. This simple act ensures that the bottom edge of your timber is never in direct contact with the damp earth. If you are installing fence posts or a pergola, the same logic applies. Instead of concreting the post directly into the ground, consider using a metal post support or shoe that is set in the concrete. This lifts the base of the wooden post out of the ground, allowing air to circulate and preventing moisture from being trapped at its most vulnerable point. Alternatively, you can dig a wider hole, fill the bottom with a foot of gravel for drainage, and then set the post on top, backfilling with more gravel around the sides. When building compost bins, don't be tempted to line them with plastic sheeting to protect the wood. This is a common mistake that actually traps moisture and accelerates rot. Instead, leave the inside of the bin bare and ensure there are gaps between the slats to allow for plenty of airflow. A compost heap needs air to work properly, and so does the wood containing it. If you choose a rot-resistant timber like cedar, or even just a solid, untreated pine like larch, and ensure it has good air circulation, it will last for a surprisingly long time without any chemical intervention. The final overarching message is to work with nature, not against it. Wood is a natural, breathable material. It wants to get wet and then dry out again. Our job is to facilitate that cycle, not to try and stop it. By choosing the right wood, fostering healthy soil, and, most importantly, using a simple stone or gravel foundation to lift the timber away from constant dampness, we can build garden structures that are not only beautiful, but also incredibly durable. It is a return to a simpler, wiser way of gardening, creating a space that is both sustainable and built to last for generations to enjoy.